Yeah, calm down, breathe.
Celebrate with it. Breathe easy, knowing that with Glow, data is oxygen.
No matter what home means to you, there is something sensational about the district by Dentata Town Developers Limited, located in the heart of Gwarimpa, Abuja. The district by Dentata promises off-takers high quality and timely construction in the pinnacle of a luxurious private community living, with its beauty redefined by spacious and functional aesthetic layouts, entailing 6 zones of 6 and 5 bedroom duplexes, 4 and 3 bedroom terrace duplexes, 3, 2 and 1 bedroom blocks of flats, and the best of amenities for comfort, leisure and security of your family. What are you waiting for? Hurry now and own your dream home today at The District by Dentata. For more inquiries, please visit our website at www.dentatatown.com. The District by Dentata Town Developers Limited. Home like no other.
Tasty, crunchy feeling. Munch it, gotta munch it every day. Munch it, just give me the super snack. Munch it, oh irresistible. Munch it, makes me wanna say. One munch, two munch, non-stop munch. Munch it is here. Irresistible. One munch, two munch, non-stop munch.
Try a pack of Munch It snack at 50 naira.
Welcome back to the show. It's The Verdict here on Channels Television, and we're reaching you live wherever you are in the world. And whenever we say wherever you are in the world, we're not joking, because we actually have live updates from all across the world, and people are sending messages into us as well. We have messages from South Korea, as well as Malaysia, Hanover in Germany, Austria, and of course Munich in Germany as well, and a string of other updates from Togo, Finland. We have lots of viewers from Toronto in Canada, so keep on sending in your pictures, from India, Japan, Indiana, and Reading in the UK. And just to excite our producer and all those who are behind the scenes making sure that this is happening, we have a viewer that says, I am married to a Channels TV now. So producer, that one is for you.
Well, talking about being married to Channels TV, one of the things we say here, we're your home for the news. We're passionate about the news, and we want to give it to you, and we strive to give it to you balanced on all sides. And so we're spread across the country and beyond. We have our correspondents giving us updates per, how do you say that, per second?
Per minute.
Okay, no, I'd like to say per second,
Yes,
as we say in Nigeria.
Yeah.
But we have our correspondents spread across the country giving us updates. We also have correspondents beyond the shores of Nigeria who are talking to the Nigerians living in diaspora to find out what they're thinking about the elections, and they continue to send in their updates as well. So we bring it all up to you so that you see that it's about you. You are the most important person. You're the reason we're here. So we want you to know that on YouTube, youtube.com/Channels Television, Channels TV app, Channels 24 app from the Play Store, from the iStore, you can download and watch us on the go. But do not watch again if you're on a bicycle or you're on a bike. But if you're in a train, you can watch us everywhere you are. So back to our conversations. Mr. Iguana.
Oh, before you do that,
Yeah.
NT, first of all, we have something coming in from the United States Consul, and that's from the United States Consul General John Bray, and he's asking warring parties in River State to sheath their swords, and this comes on the heels of reports of violence in Abonima town, as well as Akukutoru local government area of River State during the elections yesterday. Now, the state governor, Nyesom Wike, has condemned the unfortunate event, adding that the families of the deceased will be taken care of. Let's listen to them.
Let it be known that those who masterminded the murderous assault on Abonima and other communities in River State last Saturday have bloodstains on their hands, for which they are all answerable before the Almighty God. I wish to assure all and sundry that we shall, as a government, pursue justice for the families of the victims against the perpetrators of the mayhem, killings and destructions on Abanima and other communities in the Calabar Kingdom.
I'm not here to grade elections or anything like that. We're here to just say there's been enough violence. Enough people have died. And I'm here today speaking with the different candidates and party leaders.
All right, now let's also move on to Borno State, where we have our correspondent, Blessing Tuno, who's going to give us an update what's happening right now. Blessing?
This is the Collation Center for the Presidential Election Results in Borno State. It is a hall in the Sarkashim College of Education, which the INEC has opted to use for convenience. Now, collation commenced at exactly 2 p.m. in this place, following the arrival of 4 local government areas. In this hall, there are party agents, community stakeholders, and security personnel who are closely monitoring proceedings here, and all seem to be going on well at the moment. The returning officer of Abadam local government area, who voted in an IDP camp here in Maiduguri, has also arrived, and other local government areas are trickling in. Now, from the figures so far presented, we have observed that there's a huge disparity between the total number of registered voters and voters that actually turned out yesterday.
That is made up of about 12 wards. These wards have villages, and they're all displaced. They have to be centered in the local government, in an IDP situation. Some are not even in the country. Some are in other states. So I think in most local government, more than half the population are just not there. So no, the invalid is not much. The highest I had is from the last Magomeri, 600. Yeah, the other one is 300. 600 out of Magomeri is 14,000. Yeah, that's quite a lot, and it has to do with voter education. And though INEC has tried, but I think it's not enough. They need to do more.
That's all we have from Borno. It's back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks a lot, Blessing. And it's interesting that Blessing observed the disparity there between number of registered voters and the people who actually turned out.
Indeed. Yes, there's a huge disparity in the sense that far less people than those registered actually turned out to vote. I believe the gentleman she was speaking to is one of INEC's officials there. And part of what he said is that there are villages which have been entirely displaced. And therefore, the people are just not there to do the voting. So, which would account for much of the disparity in terms of registered voters and people who actually voted.
Yeah, Mr. Igbono, before we went to Nabrik, you were talking about strategy.
Yeah,
No, it wasn't you. It wasn't we were talking about where do we begin that going back to, you talked about going back to the DNA.
I think it should be multidimensional. Yeah. On the one side, if we had leaders who would set the right examples, when we're in school, even NYSC camp, and you are, when you form those lines, and they just say, put your hand on the guy in front of you. Is that not so? So the person who is the platoon commander doesn't go all the way to the back. He stays in front, gives an instruction in front, and then the person in front does the right thing, and then everybody just lines up behind. That's the power of the right leader in front. So if we had a leader that was, that would set the right examples, then you would find that people would kind of fall into line more easily. So on the one hand, that should happen. On the other hand, right from the, if you go abroad, even though it's wrong, but in places like even North Korea, from the cradle, they teach those children what they want them to believe about life. All right? So we should also begin to teach our values, the Nigerian, the Nigerian code or DNA, the things we value, the things that make us Nigerians. Apart from the pledge and the national anthem, there's nothing else. There's nothing else that we're taught. that is uniform across the board that says this is what it means to be a Nigerian. This is a Nigerian culture.
But then the pledge and the national anthem, don't they have enough content to teach?
Wonderful they are, but there could be more. There could be more. You'll be surprised that in some schools, the children know their school anthem more than they know the national anthem. That's how bad things are. In some schools, yeah.
Tochukwu in Abuja, you listened to Blessing, amongst others, who had talked about, in the case of Blessing talked about the disparity in registered voters and people who are actually voting. And I'm sure it's not only in Borno that will have reports like that. There are other states where you have internally displaced camps and people who are not in the geographical areas where they registered to participate in the voting. Now, as we go on now to the collation, I had asked our guest in Lagos, but I'm asking you, do you think that will have an impact on how quickly collation can take place in many of these places? And because the presidential result is national, how long it will take for us to get the final result?
Yeah, naturally, it's supposed to take time, but the nature of their system that INEC has agreed on how to go on is that they will go on with results that have been collated from the local level and has come down to the states and now finally in Abuja. Once again, I'll repeat again, certain people will be disenfranchised, certain people also might be discouraged because of that, but I would like to bring it to our notice right now in Nigeria that I think for now, that is the reality that we have to deal with. But going forward, that is a reality that I think we must nip in the bud. I think one of the things that we must start looking at, you kept on asking about the issue of strategy. Strategy usually happens in 3 different kind of levels. So first of all, there's the strategies, there's the operations, and there's the tactical. And INEC is very strong on the operations, we can see. But in the tactical deployment on ground, we are seeing that there's a very big problem on the ground. That's why you can see there's lateness. There are certain areas they are not having enough polling materials when the time supposed they're supposed to have it. Also, what you just asked now, when certain persons cannot get their votes counted, and at the same time, it will cause a delay. Now, I am looking at a situation where INEC, we have like a principle of legitimacy where everybody is being heard on going forward with INEC, okay? Now, how do we do that? We have to start creating a kind of movement where everybody is inclusive in their civic responsibility of saying that, look, we think INEC can do better. There are many reports that have been submitted on how INEC can be better or how voting can be better in Nigeria so that we can nip in the bud this problem that has happened and which you are highlighting now, that is something that we keep on reoccurring if we do not put an end to it. So, for example, we take a narrative in Nigeria that can become like a movement, okay? Look at what happened when Ebola came in Nigeria. Everybody's hand was on deck to deal with Ebola. In fact, that was the first time in my life that I've witnessed that in Nigeria, people can come together to deal with a particular problem that would have literally wiped us together. So that part of our national anthem came alive, which said unity and faith, peace and progress. So for the first time, Nigeria became united. They showed faith in themselves, and we had peace. Finally, we had progress. Ebola was wiped up. Coming together again, we can do that in ensuring that we have a system in INEC where everybody's votes will eventually count, will be collated, and it will be reported for what it is. Now, that kind of movement presupposes that we are going to have an ideological movement where it's not just the political parties that will be telling us what they will do, but possibly INEC through voter sensitization or education as it continues, or possibly national orientation agencies, or possibly the civil societies. I want to really commend Yaga Africa for what they did in this election. I truly, truly commend them. I see them going forward in the next election, being the umpires or the observers that Nigeria will even relate with better than international observers coming to look at what we are doing. So if we can get ourselves bringing that kind of narrative that strengthens our institutions, where everybody will know that from the point where we came to vote, it will count, we will count it together, and we are also sure that it's going to be reported at the end, I think Nigerians are going to have confidence in that. One thing that we must bear in mind, just like how you're just trying to say in the last question, in the narrative of even our national anthem, we have a narrative that says, one nation bound in freedom, peace, and unity. Now, maybe that's the kind of narrative, that's the kind of ideological indoctrination we need to start putting out together for Nigerians to know that, look, you know what, we are one nation and we are bound in freedom, peace, and unity. Until that kind of message begins to gain roots in Nigeria, just like what Mr. Nora was trying to say, we don't expect magic right now in the political process, where almost all facets of government or even public life, private life, is looking as if there's a level of mediocrity that is not meeting to best international practices. We need to look into that kind of narrative. We need to create a strategy that brings a form of communication where people will begin to think otherwise, where civic responsibility will now also be a national culture. So, for example, like Mr. Nora was rightly saying, in a country like North Korea, and many other countries too, from the cradle, they are actually taught to think about their nation, how they need to behave, how they need to speak, how they need to have a sense of pride for the nation. Yesterday, I saw something that challenged me. I saw women who, with their babies, women who were pregnant, and they were coming out and they were insisting that they must vote. I've never seen that since elections have started, since we started voting actively in 2011. Everybody were coming out, the women were bold, the young teenagers that came out, you know, the new voters that came out, everybody had a bust. But the question is that when you investigate that bust and that gusto, there is no more substance in it. And that's what I want to say, that the youth in Nigeria and even channels, thank you for the great job you are doing for us in Nigeria, to push forward this ideological message. It will form part of our strategy, because when we're talking about strategy, it has different components. So one of the components I think we must be strong on the matter of our strategy is that we need to communicate one nation. We need to communicate a form of civic responsibility that will become a corporate culture. So from how people drive, from how people go to work, from how people resume, because I was just noticing one thing that was consistent throughout yesterday was that a lot of polling units were reported that they did not start by 8 o'clock. We can change that narrative. We must put away that narrative that keeps on saying that African time or Nigerian time. Okay? So if we deal with it in our national life, in everything we do, 8 o'clock will become 8 o'clock. 2 o'clock will become 2 o'clock. And with the advent of technology, which is another component of strategy, we can find out that by this time today, next time in the next election, this same time next time in the next election, we can be almost collecting our votes.
Okay, Mr. Femene, you mentioned Yaga Africa when you were speaking a few moments ago, and we do know that they had said 7% of the smart card readers did not, well, some percent of the polling units did not use the smart card reader, and then 5% of the smart card readers did not work and were not replaced. And you know, we're talking about collation now, because that's where the whole nation is, well, what the whole nation is waiting to hear. Do you think that those instances will affect the results that we're going to hear today and tomorrow? Do you think it will affect, you know, the results that we see?
Oh, definitely they will affect it. They will affect it. Because for those people who were not able to vote, then that's the minus to the system, and definitely it will affect it. It's regrettable, but that is the reality.
Well, coming back to you, because we've had the narrative, and in some cases we have even been accused as media of emphasizing or overemphasizing, depending on who you're listening to, the negative narrative. That we also need to highlight the positive narrative. So in that light, I'll ask both of you, is this election, now that largely speaking it's over and we are now talking about results, is it an improvement on 2015?
That's a tough one to answer. I think we'll have a proper answer when the narrative is over.
Okay,
which is when that is, so far. So at this stage in 2015.
Laddie, sorry, we might go to bed tonight,
right?
And then tomorrow morning I'm watching channel television, and you're reporting another incident.
Yes,
so,
that's possible. Yes.
Yeah, you know there were 5 counts. It was free, fair, credible, transparent, unadulterated.
So far,
well, I won't say
we won't hold you to it tomorrow morning. But so far, as at almost 8:30 on Sunday, 24th.
Okay, let me put it this way. I have a friend when we were in university. He read pure chemistry, and he was preparing something in his lab. We spent nights. You know, he was writing a project, and then after finishing the whole stuff, the thing got damaged. And then he had no time to submit the report. So his supervisor told him to write an attempt. So he didn't say he discovered anything. He said an attempt at discovering something. So that's the language I would use.
So is this an attempt at having an election
yes,
then?
an attempt at having a credible election.
Or an attempt at improvement on the previous.
And, you know, and like I said too, if the competitive analysis that we do, we try to have an improvement on bad. I did better than this other person without actually holding them to what they said they would do based on the resources available. When I'm talking about resources, not just financial resources, human capital, to all those resources available. What did they say they would do? Have they done it? Did they do it satisfactorily? Did they satisfy 80% of Nigerians? They cannot satisfy 100% of us. But did they satisfy majority of Nigerians? The people that came out to vote, that stood in the sun, that stood in the rain, that stayed on queues to wait for their turns to vote, would the people go home justified at the end of the day that they voted and the electoral process was what they're coming out to vote? These are the issues that we should be looking at.
you're shaking your head. You're shaking your head.
No, and I like this attempt at.
That you're still digesting.
The attempt at.
No, but as we look ahead, as we look ahead, because the INEC chairman, I think one of us here had already mentioned that the INEC chairman had said there are a number of issues on which there's going to have to be a national discussion if those things are going to change, right?
Yeah.
Now, that was an answer to a question.
Yeah.
But if you were to identify some of those issues, what would they be?
Tough one, this is. The preparation, yes, INEC's preparation. So, for example, if there's going to be a new law, that law, by law, must be passed maybe a year or two, for example. All right? So, by law, if there's going to be a change in the law that regulates electioneering, that law should have been passed a year or two. So, INEC has 1 year to put its house in order. So, again, also, I would say that funding should be released ahead of time. I would say that we should not be afraid to try. We cannot continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. All right? So there is so much competency in Nigerians that sometimes you wonder why we seem to lack so much. If you check these so-called systems that are working all over the world, go into them, you'll be surprised that Nigerians are holding key strategic positions, enabling those things to work. So we need to ask ourselves, why can't we, if you ask me something, I think we should just outsource a large chunk of what we call government to the private sector. Because the private sector seems to do a better job. All right? So I would say that, you know, pass the law in good time, fund them in good time, interrogate this that we're doing, present the results to us, and then tell us what is going to change as a result of what we've observed. Okay? So if we did those, if we did just those three things alone as a starting point, then we can be sure that we're going to have a better result by the next round of elections.
But I'm sure there will be, because when you talk about a national discussion, it's not about INEC. The things you've identified so far seem to be restricted to INEC.
You know,
but has become clear, as it has become clear now, a number of other people, a number of other organizations, other institutions, even if you get INEC right, if those ones are not there, you know, it's like we're still at stage one. I want those ones to be identified by both of you.
We will identify them after
this break.
Okay.